Hello, my fellow warriors in Alexander the Great's army. We're at the end. Everything that has a beginning must and will have an end. And in turn, let me just say this. We have ourselves a fun video. It's titled Alexander the Great, the greatest general in history to the ends of the earth. So in turn, let us grab our shields and swords, form a tight formation, and march with the one who earned the title, the Great. I agree to. So let's sit back, relax, enjoy this video from Epic History, and enjoy this video in a 3, 2, and an uno.
At the age of just 22, Alexander, ruler of the small Greek kingdom of Macedonia, had led an invasion of the vast Persian Empire. After a string of victories, he smashed Persian military power at the Battle of Gaugamela and took the Persian throne for himself.
Yes!
Now, in 330 BC, Alexander continued his march east. His goal, to find and kill Bessus, a Persian usurper claiming to be the rightful king, and to subjugate the empire's eastern provinces. Alexander headed first for Aria, today part of Afghanistan, where the Persian governor Satibarzanes had launched a revolt after initially pretending to submit to Alexander. The rebellion was crushed and Satibarzanes killed in single combat by a Greek cavalry officer.
Good. He learned a lesson the hard way. Don't mess with the Great.
Nearby, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria Ariana.
Always naming places after yourself. Jesus, Alexander, we get the hint.
Modern Herat, one of around a dozen cities that Alexander would eventually found, almost all bearing his name.
Even the one so close to a land that you might not have heard of, called China, way up there in the north. Well, it's not near China, but it's close to it.
Alexander marched on to Frada. The Macedonian court had a long tradition of plots and assassination. 6 years before, Alexander's own father, King Philip, had been murdered by his bodyguard. He was now informed that Philotas, commander of his companion cavalry, had uncovered a plot to assassinate Alexander, but kept it secret. Philotas and his father Parmenion were among the most respected of Alexander's commanders, and had played crucial roles in all his great victories.
Traitors!
But when Philotas confessed, under torture, Alexander had him executed, then sent assassins back to Ecbatana, where Parmenion was governor, to kill him before he even heard of his son's death, and had a chance to turn against Alexander.
Come on, guys, we're doing a band. We're trying to take over the world. We can't have this.
In 329, Alexander resumed his pursuit of Bessus. En route, he founded the city of Alexandria Arachosia, modern Kandahar in southern Afghanistan.
Which again, there'd be no more problems in Afghanistan forever and ever.
As he reached Kunduz, Bessus was betrayed by his own men and handed over in chains. Alexander sent him back to Persia for execution as a kingslayer. Alexander pushed on into modern Tajikistan, where the Sogdians rose up against him. He had to fight off attacks by local tribes and take several towns by assault. On the banks of the Jaxartes River, he founded the city of Alexandria Escalating, meaning Alexandria the furthest, so named because he had, at last, reached the limit of the Persian Empire. This frontier was frequently raided by nomads, known to the Greeks as Scythians. Alexander lured them into a decisive battle near the Chalcidices. The result was a crushing victory for the Macedonian king that put an end to the raids.
All right, see? Our boy Alexander's doing it. I hope nothing bad happens.
But fighting against Bactrian and Sogdian tribes continued, frustrating Alexander and tying him down in a difficult guerrilla war. By now, many of the Macedonian troops were unhappy with Alexander. Most had not seen their homes in years, but their king seemed bent on conquest without end. What was worse, he'd begun to adopt the rituals and dress of their defeated Persian enemy, customs they viewed as effeminate and decadent.
Gentlemen, he's trying to unite the world. Believe in the vision.
At Marakanda, modern Samarkand, after a furious, drunken argument, Alexander killed Clytus the Black. Clytus had been one of Alexander's best generals, and the man who'd saved his life at the Battle of the Granicus. Alexander was full of remorse, but his growing arrogance was alienating more and more old comrades. When he tried to make his countrymen perform the traditional Persian ritual of proskynesis, prostrating themselves before the king, he crossed a line. To Greeks, this was blasphemy. Only a god was worthy of such respect, and Alexander was forced to back down. In Bactria, another plot to assassinate Alexander was uncovered. This time the ringleader was a royal page, one of the sons of Macedonian nobility who attended the king. Hermolaus had become murderously bitter towards Alexander over a perceived injustice. He and his accomplices were tortured and then stoned to death. Callisthenes, Alexander's official historian, was also implicated in the conspiracy.
Oh, come on!
He was thrown in prison.
You know, this is where, like, everyone's realizing that, hey, Alexander, you gotta realize you're losing your army here, man.
Where he later died. That summer, in 327, according to legend, Alexander became captivated by the beauty of Roxana, daughter of a Bactrian lord. Their marriage was also a sound political move, helping to end local revolt against his rule, and allowing him to continue his advance into modern Pakistan and India. Alexander now prepared to subdue the Persian Empire's most eastern provinces, which had yet to recognize his kingship. To do so, he would first have to cross the Hindu Kush mountains.
What I liked about the movie Alexander, that was directed by Oliver Stone, was there's a scene in the mountains where where they're talking about Prometheus being chained to the mountains, and if you squint hardly at that scene, you'll see a face in the mountains. If you squint hardly enough, you'll see it there. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy.
And reach the Indus River Valley. Advancing in two columns, his army won a series of skirmishes against the Aspasi and Assacani. as they fought their way into what's now the Swat Valley of northern Pakistan. After a fierce siege, Alexander took the Asakanian capital of Masaga. According to legend, it was ruled by a beautiful queen, Cleophas, who bore Alexander a son and was allowed to keep her throne.
All right, Alexander's got that pimp game. All right. Well done, Alexander.
The ruler of Taxila, near modern Islamabad, had formed an alliance with Alexander. Together, they marched to face Porus, king of Paravas, at the Battle of the Hydaspes. It was Alexander's costliest battle, as Porus's war elephants inflicted terrible casualties amongst the Greeks. But despite Porus's fearless leadership, the battle ended in a decisive victory for Alexander, winning him control of the Punjab. Alexander wanted to push on into India, to reach the great river, which ancient Greek geographers said formed the edge of the world.
No.
But at the river Hyphasis, known today as the Bias, his army mutinied. His men had marched thousands of miles, fought countless battles, and not seen their homes in 8 years. They'd heard rumors of gigantic armies waiting for them in India. They refused to go any further. Alexander was furious, but had to turn the army around. He followed the rivers of the Punjab to the sea, a journey that took 10 months. On the way, he defeated the Malians, but while leading the assault on their capital, was wounded in the chest and nearly killed. On reaching the coast, part of the army under Nearchus boarded ships and returned to Persia by sea, sailing through the Straits of Hormuz and entering the Persian Gulf. It was one of the great ancient voyages of exploration, as these waters had been previously unknown to Greeks. Meanwhile, Alexander led the rest of the army back by land through the Gedrosian Desert, today in southern Pakistan. But extreme heat and shortages of food and water led to terrible suffering and many deaths among his army.
Rumor has it he did that out of spite.
On his return to Persia, Alexander executed several of his viceroys and governors, men accused of ruling unjustly and robbing temples and tombs during his long absence in the East.
Take it easy, buddy.
At Susa, he arranged a magnificent mass marriage of Macedonian officers to 80 Persian noblewomen to strengthen bonds between his two kingdoms.
All right.
Alexander himself married 2 Persian princesses. He also paid all his soldiers' debts and ordered 30,000 youths from across the empire to be trained in the Macedonian art of war.
Okay.
But at Opis, his Macedonian troops mutinied. They were offended by Alexander's apparent preference for Persian advisors and Persian ways. Alexander had the ringleaders executed and made a speech to the men reminding them of the glories they'd won together, and leading eventually to an emotional reconciliation. At Ecbatana, Alexander's closest and most trusted friend, Hephaestion, died of fever.
Oh, no.
The king was grief-stricken.
Yeah, I remember that scene where when that happened and the doctor was like, or the healer was like, I only could do so much, and Alexander's like, kill him!
Went days without eating and ordered a period of public mourning across the empire. Alexander waged a successful campaign against the mountain raiders of Kossia, who not even the Persian kings had been able to subdue. Returning to Babylon, he was met by embassies from distant peoples, come to recognize his greatness.
I mean, he built the well, it's an empire, but not a true Roman Empire. Absolutely.
Ethiopians, Libyans, European Scythians, Lucanians, Etruscans, Gauls, and Iberians.
Rome didn't show up because they're like, you know what? We're going to take all that anyways.
Alexander's Bactrian wife, Roxana, was now pregnant. But as he planned his next campaign to Arabia and beyond, he developed a sudden fever and died days later, aged just 32.
No!
The cause of Alexander's death has never been established. It may have been malaria, cholera, typhus, or poison.
Poison is queen. Poison is queen.
Alexander died undefeated in battle. His reputation as a brilliant, fearless, and daring military commander remains undimmed. His decade-long campaign created one of the largest empires ever known, stretching from Greece to Pakistan. But it was vast and unstable, held together only by his own brilliance and name. Alexander left no plans for his succession, and his generals soon began fighting among
Shame on the house of Ptolemy. The last of the pharaohs would kill a council of Rome.
themselves to carve out their own empires. In the Wars of the Successors, Alexander's widow Roxana and his young son were murdered. His own gold sarcophagus, en route to Macedonia for burial, was hijacked and ended up in Alexandria in Egypt.
That would never burn down.
Today, its location remains one of the world's great unsolved mysteries. Few men have ever had such an impact on the course of history as Alexander the Great. The breathtaking achievements of his short life ushered in the Hellenistic Age, as Greek ideas spread across the territory of his former empire, fusing with local traditions to trigger new developments in art, science, government, and language. Some of the successor kingdoms to his great empire were short-lived. Others endured for centuries. But all, in turn, would fall to new forces. And in the West,
I saw that in the corner area. Why isn't it called Athens? That should be Rome. If you guys can't see it, like look up there in the far corner on Italy where Rome is at. It's Athens, right?
turn would fall to new forces. And in the
Rome.
West, to the rising power of Rome.
And that, my friends, is going to be a story for another day.
Research and artwork for this video comes from Osprey Publishing's extensive range of books on ancient history. Every Osprey book examines a particular battle, campaign, or combat unit in authoritative, meticulous detail. And with more than 3,000 titles, they cover everything from ancient warfare to modern conflict. Visit their website to see their online catalogue. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters who made this video possible, and to the channel Invicta. Find out more about key moments from the past in their Moments in History series.
This was a wonderful series. But sadly, it's come to an end. Alexander has passed. But what an incredible adventure, especially someone who is eventually passed away in his early 30s. I'm now 40. My birthday was in February. So, hey, I'm 40 years old now. House Pisces. Okay. Alexander the Great changed the course of human history, built a large empire, unfortunately had no successor, and in turn, his final words were to the strongest should it go to, and then his 5 generals had their little war. The Ptolemies, I think, ended up pretty much on top for a while. I mean, there were, by the way, the Cleopatra that we all know that seduced both Mark Antony and Julius Caesar. Um, she was one of many Cleopatras, one of many, and I do mean many Cleopatras, related to. And again, she comes from Ptolemy from Macedonia, and it's just very fascinating to see. Just overall, how the 5 generals eventually created their own empires. Some died, some maintained themselves, but all would fall to the true might of the greatest empire to ever exist and bring the true light of civilization and hold a standard far more higher than Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire. So, direct challenge to epic history. Do Rome next. Rome from beginning to end. A true Roman story for true Romans. In fact, maybe do something on Aurelian or Julius Caesar's campaign in Gaul. I would love to see that, wouldn't you? But what are your thoughts on Alexander the Great? Was he a madman and a tyrant, or a visionary and great world leader trying to unite the world? What are your thoughts on Oliver Stone's movie on Alexander, starring Colin Farrell? Yeah, yeah, Colin Farrell. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the description. Let us know in the comment section below, and take good care of yourselves.